Welcome back. A year after social media giant Twitter knocked on the doors of the Karnataka High Court, today it has been handed out a big jolt. The Karnataka High Court came down heavily on Twitter for not following the law of the land and dismissed Twitter's petition. Now, to jog your memory, back in 2022, which is last year, Twitter approached the Karnataka High Court challenging the centre's order to take down content from its platform under the new IT rules. Now, during the hearings, Twitter told the High Court that an order issued by the centre to block an account should list the reasons of why that order is coming through. It also insisted on a norm to be put in place so that, if needed, the order can be challenged. None of those arguments found merit in court because not only did the Karnataka High Court reject Twitter's petition, the court also imposed a fine on the social media platform. 50 lakh rupee cost imposed for non-compliance with the Indian government's orders. Now, a deadline has also been set of 45 days. If Twitter does not pay 50 lakhs in the next 45 days, then every single day will increase penalty of 5,000 per day. The single-judge bench indicated that Twitter, as a foreign company, cannot claim the rights of freedom of expression and personal liberty that is guaranteed to citizens of our country under Articles 19 and 21 of the Constitution. The court reinforcing what the central government has been telling Twitter. You want business in India, you follow India's laws. So let me take you through what the court order was today. Justice Krishna S. Dikshit of the Karnataka High Court had this to say when the order was passed. It was said that the centre has powers to block tweets and accounts. The court was convinced that the centre has these powers. Twitter did not comply with centre's notices. Multiple ones were sent, and that is also something that the court noted. Even punishment and fine did not deter Twitter. They did not comply even then. For 1 year, no reason was given for this delayed compliance by Twitter either. That's also something that the court observed. All of a sudden, Twitter approached court. Why is that? That is something that doubt was raised in court during the hearings. The most scathing observation, though, that came to the fore from the Karnataka High Court is that Twitter is a billion-dollar company. It's not a farmer, not an ordinary person that they had to knock on the doors if they didn't comply with the norms of the land. Why then did Twitter not pay? That's the question the Karnataka High Court had to ask. The verdict of the Karnataka High Court on Twitter just comes days after ex-CEO Jack Dorsey made some stunning allegations in this particular case against the central government. If you remember, Dorsey had claimed that he received threats from the Indian government back in 2021. This was during the farmers' stir. He added that the Indian government threatened to shut down Twitter India. The ex-Twitter CEO asserted that he was told that employees' homes will be raided, that they will be arrested unless Twitter decided to block accounts of those covering this protest against the three farm legislations. Jack Dorsey then went on to say that he was asked to block accounts of all those people who were critical of the government. Remember, the central government had come down heavily on Jack Dorsey back then when those allegations were made. This is nothing but an outright lie, is what the central minister had also said. But back then, when these claims were made, opposition parties were armed with the claims that Dorsey was making. They were up in arms targeting the centre over these claims. To remind you of what kind of claims and what kind of allegations were thrown in by the opposition, this is what Randeep Singh Surjewala of the Congress had to say. He said it was a dictatorial move by the centre to block these accounts, to ask for the blocking of these accounts. It was an assault on free speech. RJD Member of Parliament Manoj Jha hit out at the centre. He alleged a bid to stifle dissent. He said democracy was being murdered. The Aam Aadmi Party also upped the ante. They said that centre should apologise to the nation for trying to ensure that a social media giant like Twitter was made to cow down. Shiv Sena too attacked the centre. They said democracy and freedom of speech are under threat under the Modi government. What will be the stance of opposition parties tonight now that the Karnataka High Court has found Twitter guilty of non-compliance? A fine has also been levied on them. Does the opposition now have a change in stance, a change in heart? We'll debate that on tonight.
I hope there is a learning from this for Twitter and indeed for all platforms, and of course to Shri Jack Dorsey, that the Government of India's expectations always, previously and today and in the future, will always be simply this: compliance with the law, and then you can innovate and grow as much as you want.
Joining me on debate number 2 here on Viewpoint, spokesperson of Karnataka BJP, Madhu N. Rao. Rohan Gupta, national spokesperson of the Congress, is with me, and image consultant Dilip Cherian also joins us. But let me begin by asking Rohan Gupta first. Now that the Karnataka High Court has observed and made some very scathing observations against Twitter for its non-compliance, would the Congress like to change its stance from what it said when Jack Dorsey had made the claims that democracy was being stifled and this was an assault on free speech?
Absolutely not. We need to see these two instances in a holistic perspective. See, when Twitter was acting odd and Congress opposed Twitter at the time when it was under pressure of government, Twitter banned our national INC account and our leaders' account. So we opposed Twitter then. After that, Jack Dorsey questioned BJP and told that yes, there was a threat that Twitter will shut down. That is also the fact. At the end of the, and this is also the fact that 39 accounts where Twitter didn't give reply for why it didn't follow government order. Obviously, Twitter has to follow the land of land. We are not against that. But that doesn't, take away questions from the intention of this government of crushing voice, any voice against them. We need to take that also on account. So if you see the picture holistically, this government pressurizes any voice which is against them, whether it is Twitter or Facebook. This government sets example that if anybody doesn't follow the order, they will be threatened. There can be threat of you shutting down that platform. And at the end of the day...
But this was a claim that was made by Jack Dorsey. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but this was a claim that was made by Jack Dorsey without giving any substantive proof to begin with. A. Secondly, the centre has never denied that it asked for these accounts to be blocked or to be taken down. They in fact cited that how these could inflame passions, which is why they asked them to be taken down. And that was done under the new IT rules. So the law of the land was being followed.
Absolutely. The law of land, anybody. Again, I am not saying that Twitter is right in. They have to follow the law of land. But at the same time, allegations of Jack Dorsey should not be taken lightly. Whether evidence or not, it is upon Mr. Jack Dorsey to say. But when anybody of such a stature questions the government of the country, they should come clean. And we have seen that during farmers' protests, Twitter has taken down the accounts of the people who are speaking against them, including Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, including all of us. So my point is here is very limited. If any government in the country, if intention is not good, if their intention is to question anybody who raises questions against them, that needs to be controlled. At the same time, any platform in India, they will definitely have to follow land or not. Only question is here about the intention of the people who are in power.
Sure. Madhu and Rao, the intention of the government is the problem.
Well, good evening. I think the Congress is a confused lot. I do not understand as to what they're trying to tell. Well, anyway, that being the case, the issue is only simple. Question is whether the law of the land has to be followed or not. Simply put, Twitter did not follow. That's what the High Court has told. Now, what the High Court has told? High Court has told that the orders which were issued by the MeitY has not been followed, or rather had not been followed for over a period of a year. Why was it? And that was one of the reasons why the High Court was very categorically telling the Twitter that you have to pay exemplary cost for not having followed it. Now, why was it not followed? We all very well know. Rule 8 and Rule 9 of the blocking rules as well as Section 69A specifically gives power to the central government to block some of the contents as well as the user accounts and the specific tweets wherein it spreads like a wildfire. That's what the High Court has told. And what was the reason for the Twitter not to block it for over a year? I mean, really speaking, I think the fact of the matter remains that since they have not followed that, the High Court came heavily on them. Now, what it tells is the law of the land or the orders of the government needs to be followed in entirety and as per the directions given by the authorities. Now, having said that, I was just listening to the comment of the Congress spokesperson. I am really appalled by it. I mean, let me tell you one thing. There was a tweet in the hashtag of Modi planning farmers genocide on Jan 30th. And the order was issued against the accounts that were using this hashtag. Should it not be given? Is it not against the national interest of India? Can any platform or the user using on the platform question in such a way to incite violence and genocide? Can it be said like that? And doesn't it spread like a wildfire? That has specifically been told in the High Court order. So therefore, this judgment specifically tells that kindly obey the orders of the government then.
Yes. Yes, and Rohan Gupta, it's not just the court that has come out and said this, that it's convinced that the government has the powers to ask for accounts to be blocked or ask for tweets to be pulled down. But look at the fact that Jack Dorsey himself has a murky past. Twitter under him has also been facing questions, not just here in India about their conduct, but even in America. Should you then be taking someone as Jack Dorsey's claims on face value? Rather take what the court said today on face value.
It's not about Jack Dorsey. See, Pooja, it's not about only Jack Dorsey's case. Before 2 years, when farmers' agitation was going on, when the different agitations, even COVID thing was going on, Congress leaders' accounts were blocked. Rahul Gandhi's accounts was blocked, right? You know that. And we opposed Twitter openly because Twitter was acting against this pressure of this government. That's what I'm saying. If Twitter doesn't follow the law of land, obviously they should be penalized. We are not against that. I am talking about the intention of this government. Why this government is so sensitive that anybody who is questioning this government, they try to pressurize.
So Rohan Gupta, you're saying that not just in the case of the farmers' protest where these tweets were taken down, but this government is using this law against its political rivals in a general sense. Is that what you're trying to say, if I'm getting that right?
Absolutely. That is what this government is trying to do. Anything which is anti-government, they try to portray it as anti-national, which is not correct. This government must take...
So Madhu Rao, in a general sense... Sure. Madhu Rao, I get your point, Rohan Gupta. Madhu Rao, the allegation against the BJP is that you're using this law and claiming that the law has to be adhered to, and you're using that as a tool to silence dissent, to silence your political rivals. In this particular case, the Karnataka High Court may have come out and said that the government was right in doing so, but this is being used as a precedent, wrongly as a precedent in other cases, is the allegation against you.
Well, my dear Congress spokesperson is as confused as the Congress party and that of Rahul Gandhi. I think the court has specifically mentioned about the aspect of Section 69A as to when it can be blocked. It says in the interest of sovereignty and integrity of India, defense of India, security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, and public order for preventing incitement to the commission of any cognizable offense relating to the above. What's wrong in that? If there is any comments or if there is any tweet from a particular account which incites any of the aforesaid aspects, obviously it needs to be blocked. That has been vindicated by the High Court of Karnataka order and my friend Congress spokesperson to say it is all in the nature of a political vendetta. I really don't understand. We are only telling kindly follow the law. And one more thing. Twitter was on an argument mode saying that account level cannot be blocked, tweet can be blocked. I want to remind, in fact, the High Court has specifically stated that in case of Donald Trump, they specifically, they had a mention also. And the Twitter themselves on 8 January 2021 are on record to say that we will block this account. And they to come before the Indian courts to say that at a tweet level it should be blocked and not at an account level. I mean, it really, the court has not taken
so Twitter cannot have these arguments as per their convenience. Rohan Gupta, I'll come to you, but Dilip Cherian has been patiently waiting and listening to the arguments that you've been making. Dilip Cherian, I want to ask you, as far as Twitter goes and Twitter's history goes, after Elon Musk took over, we saw the kind of revelations that were made in what was called Twitter files. The kind of bias that Twitter allegedly had under Jack Dorsey is also something that came out. Then should we not have a higher standard of accountability for social media giants like Twitter?
Poonam, there's no doubt that we need to have high standards. But we also need to recognize today that when laws are made with the intention of muzzling, they can be equally used to ensure that anybody who stands in the face of what the government's thinking is liable to punishment. But I don't think that this is about Jack Dorsey or the image of Twitter. What is actually at contention now is the image of Elon Musk. Elon Musk has just professed that he is a great fan of the Prime Minister. And Elon Musk will now have to recognize that his company, because it maintained double standards, because it said things which it is actually capable of doing as being difficult to do, it will have to pay the price. And being a businessman, we know, and having consulted with a large number of companies who are liable to fines, you will find that Elon Musk will ensure that the law of the land is maintained, but that does not mean that the law, which at the moment, the argument between the two party spokespersons which is going on, needs to be examined from an India context. So I think we have two issues here. One is, how do we deal with foreign entities? And the second is, what do we feel about the kinds of laws that we have which deal with social media behavior? And we need to recognize that these are two things, and it is inevitable. You were asking the question as to how opposition parties will respond to this. In this country, and at this point in time, everybody will mouth the same platitude. We have faith in the letter of the law. Wonderful. But as I said, the questioning needs to go a little deeper if, Poonam, we are to make sense to the people who are actually participants, to citizens who use these platforms.
Dilip Cherian, do you also believe that the new IT laws in this country, the law in itself is an issue, like many within the opposition also like to point out?
Yes, I think that the problem is that the world recognizes that there is a certain level of, what shall I say, uncontrolled freedom of speech. But every country needs to set its own regulations depending on the extent to which public violence or violence against individuals or violence of any kind can be unleashed on citizens. Now, that should be an anxiety. But aside from that, aside from the incitement to violence, I don't think that what is said on social media is likely to affect, for example, the sovereignty of the country.
Sure.
That is not a likely eventuality because social media simply does not have the power to do that.
Sure. Rohan Gupta, you had a point to make. 30 seconds.
So, Poonam, that's what I was saying, that when BJP spokesperson gave the rules that if this is done, it should be, I agree with that. But who interprets that? What is like incitement, violence, sovereignty? Who will do the judgment? It is BJP who does the judgment. If farmers protest against our sovereignty, is it anti-national? I have 20 such accounts which were blocked by Twitter who just posted the video of farmer protests. So that is what I'm trying to take. Anything which is against this government is not against India's sovereignty. Anything against BJP is not against India. Criticism of BJP is not criticism of India. It is not anti-national. This is where BJP needs to understand. If they pressurize social media more, there will be more reaction.
Sure.
And that is
So, Madhu Rao, the Karnataka High Court may have voted in the centre's favour today and pulled up Twitter, but this is not the only benchmark. The government has to do better as well. 30 seconds. I'm unfortunately running out of time, but 30 seconds, Madhu Rao.
I may as well say that we are only following the law and everyone needs to follow the law. Point one. Point two, I'll just be very specific in 30 seconds. Now, the fact of the matter remains that Twitter or any social handle for that matter have to follow specific regulations for the fact the court has been very categorical in saying that the tweets on the social media spreads like wildfire and that needs to be controlled. So therefore, there is an imminent, there is a lot of imminent threat of violence or anything of that sort, which affects under whatever circumstances mentioned in 69A.
Sure.
So what is the problem in following the law and the order? What has been given under Rule 9 of blocking?
Which is also what Elon Musk said after he met the Prime Minister, that the best case scenario is that we follow the law of the land. That's really the message. Whether it's because they want the business of this country, we are a large market, it's something that Elon Musk and the owners of Twitter cannot ignore. Is that why they want to comply with the law of the land? That's irrespective. They still have to. That's the message that the centre has been sending. That's also something that the Karnataka High Court spoke of today. We do hope the message reaches the higher echelons of Twitter and the other social media giants. But I have to leave it at that. And I thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us here on this broadcast of Viewpoint. We are shifting focus now to some breaking news that's now trickling in. We're now learning that Prime Minister Modi held a telephonic conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is in connection with the events of 24th of June. We're learning now that Prime Minister Modi expressed understanding and support for the decisive actions of the Russian leadership to protect law and order and ensure stability in the country, also security of its citizens. Abhishek, my colleague, joining us live, getting us more details of when exactly this telephonic conversation took place. Abhishek, what exactly was the sense that the Prime Minister was echoing in that phone call?
So, of course, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, has been engaging with the world leaders, especially his partners and allied countries, in the wake of 24th of June event that had rattled the whole establishment in Russia about this whole armed rebellion led by regime that has happened. Since then, he has been in touch with all his peers and, in a way, trying to explain what has happened. With the Prime Minister of India, also the issues of Ukraine conflict came up, and Vladimir Putin, while discussing the event, said that the Ukrainian side is a bit of adamant and is not willing to come on a diplomatic or political resolution of the problem. Both the leaders also discussed about the issues like SCO and G20, where India is currently holding the chairmanship, and the issues of BRICS was also discussed. Prime Minister's recent visit of USA and the engagements were also shared by Prime Minister Modi with the Russian side. The issue of 24th of June and what all transpired has also been discussed, but the detail that has not been published by any of the government. We know the analyst in the world has yesterday had a conversation with his Russian counterpart, Patrushev, and ever since that June event of armed rebellion that Russia had faced in a very dramatic way, that ended also in a very dramatic way and very quickly,
Yes.
there has been high-level engagements from Indian side also to the Russian side.
Yes, India is keeping a close watch right from the Prime Minister's office, in fact. For the moment, Abhishek, though, thank you so much for getting us the latest. France continues to remain on edge for a third consecutive day. Widespread protests have erupted. This is over the death of a teenager. President Emmanuel Macron has now announced more police that is going to be deployed to control these riots, also calling on parents to prevent their children from participating. He says that video games have intoxicated the rioters. Take a look at what has transpired and the violence that has gripped France for the last 72 hours.
Unrest erupted again on Thursday in France, marking the third day of clashes over the deadly police shooting of a teenager. In Nanterre, where the incident took place, cars were set on fire, and protesters set up road barricades, hurling projectiles at lines of police. Riot police fired back with tear gas. Earlier in the day, there had been a largely peaceful march for the victim, identified as 17-year-old Nael of North African descent. He was shot dead during a traffic stop, and public anger over the incident led to riots across France this week. The teenager's mother chanted "Justice for Nael" with other supporters in the march. Karima Katem, a local councillor in Blanc-Mesnel, northeast of Paris, says people's patience is running thin.
I think we owe this today to Nael. There have already been so many like him before, and we don't want any more. By killing Nael, they killed our child.
Earlier, President Emmanuel Macron held a crisis meeting with senior ministers over the shooting and condemned the unrest. Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said 40,000 police officers would be deployed across the country on Thursday. That's nearly 4 times the numbers mobilized the previous day. A video shared on social media, verified by Reuters, shows 2 police officers beside a Mercedes AMG car, with one shooting at the teenage driver at close range as he pulled away. He died shortly afterwards from his wounds. A Nanterre prosecutor said the officer involved had been put under formal investigation for voluntary homicide. The officer has acknowledged firing a lethal shot, the prosecutors added, telling investigators he wanted to prevent a car chase after the teenager allegedly committed several traffic violations. The incident has fed long-standing complaints of police violence and systemic racism inside law enforcement agencies from rights groups and within the low-income, racially mixed suburbs across the country. Authorities deny the accusations.
With that, it's a wrap from my side here on this edition of Viewpoint. Shivani Gupta joins you next.